Have you ever gotten frustrated when somebody comes speeding by you and cuts you off without using their signal? Or you see that person speed up because they're going to beat that red light when you know they have no chance? Or speeding cars in your neighborhood? One of the most common concerns we hear from our community is related to traffic. Today in the roll call room, I've got Officer Alex Elwell from our traffic division. He'll help break down traffic enforcement, talk some prevention, and hopefully clear up some confusion about some of those traffic laws. Alex, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Before we really get deep into the traffic laws and the like, talk a little bit about your role here at the police department and how you came to Mount Vernon PD.
I'm currently assigned as a traffic unit motor officer. I've been with the department now for almost 10 years.
Already?
I know, 10 years already.
I'm old.
And I came to Mount Vernon PD through college. I had a bunch of friends that were from Mount Vernon, Burlington area. Kind of got to know the area through them. After graduating from college at WSU, applied to Mount Vernon PD, and I've been here since.
Okay. You major in criminal justice? Or?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I had a degree. I got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And then I also attended a police internship there through WSU PD.
Tell me a little more about that.
At the time, it was called the police internship. It's now called the WSU PD Police Corps program.
Okay.
They've kind of rebranded since. But it's a fantastic program for anybody that's looking to get into law enforcement, get a lot of hands-on training experience.
I was going to say, what kinds of things did you do as an intern?
They did a lot of things. We got to do everything from traffic control. We did a lot of mock scenarios, tons of ride-alongs with officers. Officers even let us place handcuffs on people at their discretion.
All right.
We helped process people for DUI and did like fingerprinting and photographing at the Pullman City jail holding facility they have.
Sounds like a lot of good experience.
It was a fantastic experience.
Great. And so you've been here 10 years-ish now. What other roles have you held here at the PD?
I'm currently also a field training officer, an FTO. So I train new officers when they get out of the academy. I'm also on our PTO team, our police tactical operations team. I've been with PTO for 2 years now. And then I'm also a department recruiter, and I'm also one of our guild representatives.
So you get to go back to WSU every once in a while?
I do. I usually try to make it back to WSU once a year.
Nice.
For their mock scenes, both to kind of give back to the program as an instructor, and then also for recruiting.
Great. So tell us a little bit about your role as a traffic officer here.
So as a traffic officer for Mount Vernon PD, my main role is to obviously handle anything traffic related. So either traffic related complaints, responding to collisions, DUIs, and then when I'm not responding to calls for service related traffic, then I'm more of a proactive role. So I try to look at collision data or complaint data and try to spend time in those areas for whatever violation we see as a problem, whether it's running a red light or speed, things like that.
Okay. In a car, on a motorcycle, how do you do it most of the time?
Well, the weather's great. I try to get out on the bike as much as possible.
Sure.
I do have a car when we have inclement weather, or if the bike's just simply getting maintenance done, like it's in the shop or something.
Sure.
But my partner Paul Shaddy and I, we try to get out on the bikes together as much as we can, simply just because you're way more effective as a traffic officer.
How so?
You can get into spots where cars can't fit. So for example, I can simply just park the motorcycle on the sidewalk near an intersection. Probably a great example is the intersection of College and Riverside.
Busy intersection.
Very busy intersection. You have right-hand turn lane, 2 straight lanes, 2 left turn lanes for each side of the intersection, followed by a driveway for busy businesses. There's no way you can really effectively monitor that intersection in a car because you just don't have a spot to physically park the car safely without interfering with traffic. Where on a motorcycle, I can just simply park it on the sidewalk. Officer Shaddy and I will usually work as a team on opposite sides of the intersection, and then one person can watch the red light for the other person and call out the last car that's ran the red light. and then the other officer would then make the stop.
Got it.
So that's a common area that we'll sit at, and then same thing with like school zones. I can sit on the sidewalk, right at the side, the crosswalk where the school crossing guard is, and just be right there, and I have the best view from that spot.
Got it. Did you ride motorcycles before you got the one here?
I had a little bit of experience. I personally ride a 250 dual sport, so it's more of a off-road dirt bike style.
Okay.
I certainly didn't have experience riding much larger, like street touring style bikes. So that was a challenge for me when I got this position.
One of the things I've always heard over my career is that motorcycle training school is one of the toughest around. So talk a little bit about what that was like.
It is definitely the toughest school I've been into in law enforcement. It's a 2-week school. Bellevue PD hosted it. I recently graduated in October 2025. The majority of the instructors were Bellevue PD. We had a Redmond PD officer, and then some contract cities with the King County Sheriff's Office. But it's a 2-week school. There's several tests, which if you fail any of the tests, at any point you are flunked out of the school.
So you got to come home.
You get sent home. So yeah,
That happened in your class at all?
Yes, we had 2 people fail tests, got sent home. One person was injured, and another person quit. So out of a class of 10, we had 6 graduates.
What are some of the things they teach you in motor school?
A lot of it is much more slow speed technical writing. There's a lot of group writing things, how to get on and off the freeway ramps and make lane changes and stuff. Hand signals and stuff as you're writing as a group. And then they cover everything else from, we had mock traffic stops on a bike. We actually went to a shooting range and practiced shooting from the bike, how to dismount an emergency, which is basically drop the bike and get off, shooting from behind the bike when the bike's laying down. We even had preparing for if someone threw their vehicle in reverse and tried to hit us as we're trying to pull them over, a mock pursuit. So there was a lot of different things that they trained us for as far as skills. They leave radar equipment stuff up to your own agency.
Okay.
It's basically mostly the skills part of the motorcycle, and then obviously safety considerations.
You said it was 2 weeks?
It's 2 weeks, yeah.
How many times you crash?
I dropped the bike several times. Yeah, that's expected.
Not too much damage though?
No,
Good.
it's not too much damage.
Good.
We have crash bars on the side of the bikes,
Okay.
so that when you lay it down, it protects most of the paint and stuff. And the
it.
crash bars are replaceable. So
Got it. I saw one picture from your bike school, and you had some blue painter's tape on the windshield,
Yes.
and it had something written on there. What was it?
I had Pop-Tart written on mine.
Why Pop-Tart?
So in school, all the students get a nickname.
Okay.
And I didn't have a nickname for a little bit. And one morning, either I don't know if it was before class or during a morning break or something like that, I pulled a Pop-Tart out of my side saddle bag on the motorcycle and started eating a Pop-Tart. And one of the instructors was like, "That's your new nickname."
That's it.
And it
There
stuck.
it is. Nice.
So
Well, having heard that story, I actually got you a little something. So I'm going to reach back here. And I don't know what your favorite type is, but I got you a little strawberry
Blueberry.
frosted one.
all right, strawberry. There we go. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Eating that for lunch now.
All right. So with traffic, there's the enforcement element, but there's also education and engineering that goes into it. Talk a little bit about what maybe an engineering technique is when it comes to traffic.
So, with engineering would be like how you design the roadway, traffic control devices, how you mark lanes, your traffic control legend. So we may pull collision data from certain intersections or areas, and if we can see an increase or a problem in serious accidents, injury accidents, or just the overall volume, the number of accidents, we may explore changes engineering-wise to the roadway. A couple notable ones in my career have been intersection of College Way and 30th.
Okay.
That used to be just stop signs for 30th, and College Way just proceeded straight.
So it was just College Way as a through road.
It was
pretty,
just a
pretty major
through road.
state route.
Yeah, it's a state route.
And then 30th is a cross
30th
street
is
there.
cross
They-
street,
You said
so-
just had stop signs at the time.
Only for 30th Street.
Okay.
And so now it's a four-way regulated intersection, light signal intersection.
Okay.
Another example would be like Martin, LaVenture, Francis Hogue, that whole intersection. That used to be just four-way stop, but each side also had a left turn lane as well as a straight lane. So that became very confusing and congested. So that's now a four-way regulated light intersection.
I'd been through that one, and I remember that was one of the ones that, you pull up there at the stop line, and then it's you go, no you go, no
Exactly.
you go, and so there's a lot of confusion.
Yeah, especially at rush hour, I was all backed up, and so we had some T-bone accidents there. And then Fur and 30th is another one. Used to just be stop signs for 30th Street, and Fur didn't have any regulation, and now it's a four-way stop. So
Some of the other ones I've seen that, correct me if I'm wrong, that would be engineering ones is putting striping on the road as like designating a parking
Yeah.
area. Remember, we had a neighborhood where we'd actually had a couple of shootings. And so we went in as a department, and we're going to meet with the community and be like, okay, let's understand the problem, and how are we going to prevent all these shootings from happening? And in meeting with the neighborhood, one of the things that came up as they were most concerned about was speeding vehicles. And concerned that I can't have my kids out in the front yard playing because these cars fly through here all the time. And so I know they went and talked about, engineering with our department there, and we ended up with those parking lanes. Because I think naturally it, narrows the road, and so you feel like you have to go slower. And then also put in, stop sign
Yep.
there to hopefully slow stuff down. So
Yep. So there is a traffic safety committee for the city of Mount Vernon, which we do have a law enforcement representative on it. Officer Shaddy serves as that currently. There's a council member. There's a traffic engineer for the city, streets department representative.
Okay.
And so complaints can also be made online to that committee as well, and they can evaluate whether there needs to be an engineering change or not.
Got it.
Or if this is more of an enforcement only issue, then it gets deferred to the police department.
how do they, in those meetings, decide whether it's going to be an engineering or hey, just police department handle it?
Typically off of collision data.
Do they run like speed, studies in the area sometimes?
Potentially, if that's the complaint. You can look at collision data, but overall they still have to follow was it the model uniform traffic code. So there's federal and state guidelines that kind of regulate
What you can do and what you can't do.
essentially.
Yeah.
So, but there's other stuff like people request like I want sidewalks in the area and stuff like that.
Speed bumps.
Speed bumps is a very common one.
Yeah.
So they can look at those sort of things and see what the best course of action is.
Got it. So if I'm a community member and I've got a complaint or an area I want looked at, how do I get in touch with that group?
You
Mention
can
online?
Just online through the city's website. They can search the City of Mount Vernon's Traffic Safety Committee.
Okay.
And general traffic safety enforcement complaints that want to be directed specifically to the police department can be on the police department's website
Got it.
for general enforcement requests. Citizens can also request the speed radar trailers be set up. We have both a radar trailer and now we have a pole mounted one as well that can be mounted to like a stop sign or probably more like a speed limit sign. We save that one for areas where there's like not shoulder parking for the trailer. So if there's no street parking where we can't park a trailer, then we're going to mount that sign. Those inquiries can be requested through the police department because we have the equipment for that.
Okay. And those are the signs that we put out that actually like read your speed and
Correct.
display it for
Yep.
you so you know, hey, I should slow down here.
Yep.
And so that'd be probably an example of the education we do out with the public to try to change behavior
Yep.
if we've got a problem in the area.
Yeah.
How do you decide where am I going to go, run radar this week or this day and do some enforcement?
So we typically look at, that's kind of like their fourth E of traffic safety is your evaluation. So we're kind of taking everything and seeing what we need to change, if it's worked or not. So a lot of times, for like speed specifically, a lot of it comes from online complaints actually. We got a lot of online complaints for speeding in different neighborhoods, so we'll try to go to those specific areas. And then with the speed radar trailers and the mounted signs, on top of just displaying to the driver what their speed is, it's actually collecting data. It doesn't record license plates or anything, it's just collecting speed vehicle data. Then we can look at it based off of time of day, day of the week, and so we can kind of tailor our emphasis, like our speed emphasis, to certain times of the day where there's either peak traffic volume or peak speeding violations at that time.
Got it. In the traffic unit, you also investigate a lot of crashes. What do you think probably is the most common cause of a crash?
Typically distracted driving or following too closely. We see a lot of rear end fender benders, and usually someone will get cited for following too closely. But I think a lot of times that's distracted driving. I'm not there to witness the distracted driving. They're on their cell phone or something like that, unless I have some sort of statement from a driver. They're saying that.
I was going to say, is that distraction cell phone or can that be other things as well?
It can be anything. I mean, the most common one is just cell phone. But I've seen other people that admit to distraction, like they're messing with their dog in the back seat, they're eating while driving, they're messing with their infotainment. A lot of modern cars have large infotainment screens now, so they're playing with the touch screens on that.
Yeah. You mentioned pets and reaching back and with your dog or whatever. I've seen the people driving down the road and you got your dog in your lap as you're going. That's probably frowned upon.
So yeah, it's kind of a secondary violation. It's not grounds for a stop, but that can be distracted driving if you have like a pet or you're eating while driving, you're doing your makeup. You can be cited for that.
Okay.
It's not a primary offense, so I can't pull you over, but if I pull you over something else and I saw that, you can then be cited for it.
Okay. What's that ticket cost a person?
Most tickets are $150.
Ouch.
So for most violations, like running a stop sign, and then if you have different school zone stuff, and construction zone, playground zones, those add penalties. The fee goes up, and then speed is very. It's an increasing fine schedule based off of your speed, and then there's also two different scales for if the speed limit's under 40 miles an hour or if it's over 40 miles an hour.
So basically, the faster I go, the bigger ticket goes.
The faster you go, the bigger the ticket is.
Okay.
That's correct. At some point, you get criminal charges.
Sure. I was worried about the dog too. I can't imagine driving down with my dog on my lap and then, heaven forbid, getting a crash and airbags get deployed. It's hard on a human.
That is a very scary thing when your dog's not in a seatbelt, and if he's in the front seat, the dog could get ejected out the window if you're in a major collision. But if there's airbag deployment, your dog's going to be likely seriously injured if your dog's small, especially if your dog's small enough to sit on your lap.
Yeah.
I typically recommend people have their pets in the back seat.
Sure.
One, they're more confined if there is some sort of major collision, but they don't have to worry about the front airbag as much, and the side airbag is going to protect the dog.
Yeah. So let's say I'm driving down the road and bam, I get in a crash. What do I do now?
If you are if your vehicle is capable, like it's not damaged and disabled, try to safely get to either the shoulder of the road or into a parking lot somewhere, and then obviously call 911.
So I'm not supposed to sit in the road so you can exactly see where everybody was?
Yes, if especially if it's not a major collision and both vehicles are clearly drivable, it's much safer for you to get off of the roadway to the shoulder at least, so you don't cause a secondary collision.
Oh, okay.
There can be secondary collisions caused by, especially at intersections, because people can't stay in their lane if you're in the middle of the intersection. They have to go around you, they start going in oncoming traffic, et cetera, et cetera. And generally we see with collisions caused by a backup, people get distracted by the collision, they're looking at the collision, or they just get frustrated by the congestion.
Sure.
And they start driving aggressively and then causing another collision.
Yeah. I'm going to get out of this lane and go around. And
Yep.
then somebody else does it, now there's another
And
crash.
now you have a head-on crash.
Yeah.
Or just another rear-end collision.
Yeah. What about in a parking lot or something like that?
So if you're in a parking lot is not the public roadway. So reportable collisions are collisions that occur in the public roadway
Okay.
and are more than $1,000 damage to a vehicle. So even if it occurs on the public roadway, if it's a very small crash and there's less than $1,000 damage, you don't have to report it. You still have the obligation to do an information exchange with the other person, which includes giving your full name, address, phone number, and insurance information. If it's in a private parking lot, you have to do all the same information exchange, but you're not necessarily required to call law enforcement to come and investigate. If there's any sort of issue with getting the other person's information, like they don't want to cooperate and provide their information, you can certainly call dispatch and ask for an officer to respond. We can come out and assess and mediate. We can't issue citations
In a parking lot?
parking lot. There are no rules of the road in the parking lot.
Got it.
So I can't even cite somebody for driving without a license in the parking lot because it's not the public roadway.
Got it.
The only other thing that can enforce criminal violations, so if someone's DUI, so if you suspected impairment or something like that, obviously call 911 will respond and assess that. And then hit and run collisions. So hit and run's going to be a criminal offense, and you can obviously call law enforcement to come and investigate the hit and run.
So even if I'm in a parking lot, if somebody whacks me and then takes off, even though it didn't occur on a public roadway, that's still something.
Correct. You can still call law enforcement to come and investigate. We can come and assess either canvas area for private business cameras or compare with our own traffic cameras in the area. If it's a collision where you're like, hey, I just noticed this damage now and it could have happened anytime in the past, days or weeks or months, you don't have a specific location, those type of collisions can be simply reported online through the Washington State Patrol's website.
Okay.
If someone just simply Google searched WSP online collision report, they'll go to their website, they can click on the civilian report, and they can just self-report the information.
Okay. We talked about crashes and what you do if you're involved in a crash. You mentioned earlier you make a lot of traffic stops. So let's say you get behind me on the motorcycle and you hit the lights and siren and I got to pull over or somebody has to get pulled over. What do you want the driver to do now?
So if you get pulled over, or really any time that you see flashing red and blue lights behind you, you should pull to the right, slow down, or pull and come to a complete stop. It's usually pretty obvious if you're getting pulled over versus we're going code to an emergency.
Sure.
Especially if you move to the right and you see us move with you to the right, that's usually a good clue that we're coming to stop you and not going to stop another person or going code to a call. Typically, if we'll ask you to look for a good either shoulder to stop at or a parking lot to pull into. Typically, a good officer will try to not activate their lights until they can kind of foresee an anticipated spot, safe location to do the traffic stop.
Okay.
So I don't try to turn on my lights and perform a traffic stop in the middle of the West Side Bridge where there's
Sure.
no shoulder or anything like that. I'll wait till you get on the other side of the bridge and then turn on my lights so that there's a nice shoulder to park into our parking lot on the Riverwalk.
So then I get pulled over. What do I do now?
So obviously you're gonna want to roll down your windows when the officer approaches. We'll ask, we'll inform you the reason for the stop. We'll ask for your driver's license, registration, insurance. As we approach, we simply just ask people to have your hands at your steering wheel until we show up. That way there's no concerns that you may be reaching for weapons as we're approaching.
Sure.
And then when we ask you for your paperwork and stuff, you can reach for those things, obviously, then when we're at the window.
I had someone right when I was young in my career tell me, whenever I get pulled over, I like to get out of the car and go greet the officer so he knows I'm not a threat.
Yeah, that's probably the worst thing you could do.
Why?
I've had people do that to me as well. I don't recommend getting out of your vehicle on a traffic stop unless directed by the officer, because especially when we're initially pulling you over, statistically, that's when officers will get shot or ambushed, is when they first approach a vehicle or when they're first exiting their vehicle.
So then somebody comes out, and that's a big concern.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, if I pull someone over and they immediately hop out, especially if they jump out of their vehicle and start approaching me, I'm going to perceive that as a threat.
That's a threat. Also, I can imagine it's a little dangerous, because if you pull over and then you hop out of your car, there's still oncoming traffic, and so you don't want any sort of crash.
Yeah, I don't want any sort of crash or anything. And if it's a bad stop location, I'll either get on my PA system and instruct the driver where to pull over, or if there's like a language barrier, or if it's just too loud, they can't hear me with wind or something like that, I'll approach them and say, hey, let's go pull into this parking lot over here, and I'll follow you.
Okay. So basically, if you get pulled over, stay in your car, hands on your wheel, and wait for the officer.
And just wait for the officer to
address
come and make contact with you.
Okay. I mentioned in the open that we want to clear up some confusion on some traffic laws. There's been a lot of controversy lately about the legality of ATVs and UTVs being driven on city streets. Talk a little bit about what the law actually is.
So state law says that you can only drive those UTVs when they have a registration and license, they have all the equipment stuff that allows them to be on the roadway, but there also has to be a municipal or a city ordinance allowing for UTVs in the municipal jurisdiction or in the county. So if the municipal jurisdiction, so like the city of Mount Vernon, does not have a law allowing for UTVs, which we do not, then it's illegal. And as far as I know, currently the Skagit County does not have a county ordinance as well.
No, they don't either. And it sounds like this law is actually a little backwards from most laws where they're inherently not allowed to do this. And then the city has to pass an ordinance that allows it, where most laws are the other way.
Correct.
Where we don't want this activity to occur, so we're going to pass a law to prohibit it.
Correct.
Kind of like we did with fireworks a few years back.
So most laws, it's not illegal unless there's a law prohibit it, and if there's no law covering it, then inherently it is legal. This is very much backwards, where it says it's only legal when there's a municipal or county ordinance allowing for it.
I can see how it'd be confusing for people who buy these things and put their license plates on it. So you assume that it's okay to be driven on the road.
Yep.
And dealers too, keeping track of, telling somebody who's buying it, you can drive it here, but not here, but you can over here. It's got to be very confusing.
Yeah, you're not allowed to drive it on any roadway that has a speed limit over 35 miles an hour. And for the other issue we would run into with the city of Mount Vernon is we have two state routes in our jurisdiction. We have College Way, which is 538, and then we have Memorial Highway, or West Division, 536. So we would also have to consult with WashDOT to allow for an ordinance with that as well. And then, frankly, College Way east of 30th, even if we did adopt an ordinance, you wouldn't be able to drive out there either because the speed limit increases to 45 miles an hour.
They don't make it easy, do they?
No, it's confusing.
School zones. So it's 2 in the morning and I'm driving through a school zone. Do I have to go 20 miles an hour?
If it's 2 in the morning, no. So school zones in the city of Mount Vernon, all of our signs say when children are present. And that means that the children are present on the sidewalks of the public roadway.
Okay.
Technically, if the kids are in the playground, they're not at the street sidewalk, that's not considered an active school zone. It's usually pretty obvious for people to see when it's a school zone. All of our schools have school crossing guards. They have high-vis yellow vests. They have a orange stop flag. You'll see all the school buses. If you see all those sort of things, that's going to be a clue that this is probably a school zone.
So that's what we in policing would call a clue.
That's a clue.
Yeah, so slow down during those times. The other one that's very confusing, and we're going to give some people some resources on this one, but is e-bikes.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a general rule?
A general rule for e-bikes is they have to have human-powered pedals. So if it doesn't have human-powered pedals and it's classified like a bike, so not like a scooter or something like that, or a moped, then that's an e-bike. If it doesn't have the pedals, it's essentially a motorcycle.
Okay.
It's an e-motorcycle.
Can you ride them on the sidewalks and that kind of thing?
So if you have a class 1 or 2 e-bike, then you can ride it on the sidewalk. If you have a class 3 e-bike, which means it's able to go up to 28 miles an hour unassisted by human power, so the electric motor only, 28 miles an hour, you can never ride it on the sidewalk, and you also must be 16 years or older.
Okay. And we've had several crashes involving these e-bikes and scooters over the last year.
Unfortunately, we have. We've seen a lot of collisions involving e-bikes. We even had, unfortunately, a fatal collision involving likely essentially an motorcycle, because it was probably capable of going faster than 28 miles an hour unassisted. Unfortunately, it struck an elderly man, and that victim died.
As he was riding on the sidewalk.
Yes, so that guy was also riding on the sidewalk on an e-bike.
Yeah. And I can see how they're confusing because there's a lot of different, 1, 2, and 3 class ones. And
Yes.
so we're going to put in the description of this. Recently came out an e-ride guide that is nice. People can go through and it's kind of a click a box, my bike has pedals or not, and then it takes you to the next one. And ultimately you can get the law for what you can and can't do there. So we'll include that in the description. Alex, I want to say thank you for coming in today and talking about all these things. Hopefully the public can learn something from you. So that wraps up today's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you click subscribe and check out our Facebook and Instagram pages so you never miss an update. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time, right back here in the roll call room.